The Final Four, Chapter 26, Rocco back at 8:05 p.m. With 3:10 remaining and the game still knotted up, Rocco gets stripped of the ball by Malcolm's lightning-swift hands. He tries to banish the thought of that turnover from his mind. It gets easier to do with the Spartans flying down the court in a wave, intent on seizing the lead. You can't be a good point guard or a good defender without having a short memory, without the ability to forget about your last mistake. In the span of just a few backpedaling strides, Rocco's thoughts become clear and focused as he searches for an angle to cut off Malcolm's dribble. To Rocco's left, Aaron arrives to double-team Malcolm, convinced he has no intention of passing the ball. That causes Rocco to instantly readjust his calculations and slightly turn his body. Rocco and Aaron hang like a crimson shadow over Malcolm as he attacks the hoop on a driving layup. When Malcolm extends the rock in his right hand, both defenders go for the block, and for an instant, the hands of all three players are touching the ball. The ref's whistle blows for a foul on the Trojans. "That was perfect defense," screams Coach Kennedy from the sideline. "We tied him up. Where was the contact? You let them play like thugs, and we can't breathe on anybody." Rocco raises his hand to say it's on him, but the ref shakes his head, pointing at Aaron. It's his fifth and final foul, so Aaron is now out of the game. So this is a huge blow to the Trojans because Aaron has made some great shots for them throughout this game. And understandably, Coach Kennedy is really upset because the Spartans have been really rough out there against the Trojans. I mean, they basically gave Rocco a concussion and nothing's being called on them, and yet so much is being called on the Trojans. But the foul is called on Aaron. It is his fifth, and so he is out of the game. "That's it," says Malcolm. "We're going to pull their team apart piece by piece." The Superdome crowd gives Aaron a standing ovation as he walks off the court. But the loudest applause is coming from his family and friends behind the Trojans' bench. And Rocco, along with his red-winged surrogate parents, claps his hands harder and harder for him. So yes, he is out of the game, but everyone's just so proud of him, playing so hard, playing in this insane game that's lasted for forever. And so he gets a standing ovation in the Superdome. Not only because of that, but because think about last time he was there. It was Hurricane Katrina. A moment later, Malcolm sets his feet at the free throw line. Putting that blown breakaway dunk behind him, he buries both foul shots. The Spartans lead the Trojans 88-86. And now we have a flashback to Rocco's journal. March 29th, 2 days ago. This morning I walked into the Superdome for the first time. I couldn't believe its incredible size. Maybe it's big enough to land a jumbo jet inside or build a small city beneath its roof. Before we went to our locker room to change, Coach Kennedy arranged for Aaron, his mother, and his aunt and uncle to take us on a special tour. They brought us to Section 3, and we all sat down in the seats there. Or maybe it's 111, sorry, not 3. Section 111, and we all sat down in the seats there. That's the section where Aaron and his family stayed for 2 days and nights to survive Hurricane Katrina, back in the summer of 2005, when Aaron was 14 years old. I knew it was going to be a serious talk from the heart because it was the only time that Aaron's aunt and uncle, my official parents in New Orleans, took off their red curly wigs. So I pulled out a pen and my notebook. Aaron wanted his mother to speak, but she said, "These are your teammates. You share a bond with them that I don't. They need to hear about what happened from you." So Aaron told us about his first morning here, how it started out almost as a great adventure. I kept looking at the football field on the floor where the basketball court is laid out now. I couldn't believe I was sitting here for free. It was like a dream, said Aaron. Then he told about how fast that dream turned into a living nightmare, like the Freddy Krueger character from the movies was suddenly turned loose on thousands of people seeking shelter inside the Superdome. First thing, boom, the AC stopped working. It got to be like 120 degrees in here with all the heat and humidity. Then more and more people came, lots of them in bad shape from the storm, adding more body heat. There were crazy long lines to get food. National Guard soldiers with machine guns handed out boxed lunches. Then they ran out of supplies and people started fighting over whatever food and water they could get their hands on, Aaron said. Aaron's uncle told him not to forget about the bathrooms. But his uncle got so upset just mentioning it that he started to tell that part himself. All the toilets backed up when the water pressure dropped because of the floods in the streets. That stink was everywhere, in the Superdome. You couldn't escape it. You couldn't step into a bathroom without getting sick to your stomach. So people started relieving themselves in every corner of this place, said his uncle, sounding as angry as if it had happened yesterday. When he said that, I thought about those terrible times as a small boy in Zagreb, the nights we hid in my neighbor's basement overnight with no bathroom because of the exploding mortar shells outside. Finally, Aaron's mother spoke. She said, "It wasn't all evil. There were some beautiful things that happened here, too. They were things that would really touch your heart, like people doing good deeds for complete strangers, treating them like family, and sharing their last of their food and drink with the sickly and senior citizens. But lots of elderly folk died in the heat, waiting for medical help, and none of us trapped here knew for sure if we'd have a home to go back to, or if our city would be completely washed away, killing off our culture, our roots. One of the only things that eased my mind was the fact that the football team that plays in this stadium is named the Saints. I took that as a sign and a blessing." Coach Kennedy stood up from his seat like he was a student and Aaron's mother was a professor. He asked her, "How do you feel when you look around the Superdome now and see all of it put back together, knowing your son will play here in the Final Four?" She thought about it for a few seconds and then said, "Part of me feels a real sense of triumph for my family and the people of New Orleans. Another part of me looks at the free tickets we got for the game and says that isn't nearly enough to make up for what we went through in this Superdome. So it's all very mixed emotions for me. I guess I'm optimistic, grateful, and bitter all at the same time." As we left, I looked around at that perfect stadium and the hundreds of workers polishing things up like new for the Final Four. I thought about Croatia and wondered if my country would ever get put back together. Maybe the souls of New Orleans and Zagreb are not so different. Maybe Aaron is closer to being my brother than I ever knew. So that's a really sweet journal entry by Rocco talking about just 2 days ago when the team first arrived in the Superdome. They get to talk to Aaron's family and Aaron about what it was like during Hurricane Katrina. And just, they don't go into like a lot of the horrors that happened during that time, but just about how food was really scarce and the bathroom situation was abysmal, right? You couldn't even use the bathrooms because you couldn't handle the stench when you walked in there because the water was out. The AC was out, right? So people were literally going to the bathroom everywhere, all over the Superdome. And just how horrific, right, that might have been. And that makes Rocco think about back in Croatia, right, when bombings were happening and stuff, and how he and his family would hide out with neighbors in a basement, and that didn't have a bathroom either. And he sees how New Orleans and the Superdome have put themselves back together after Hurricane Katrina, and he wonders if his country, Croatia, will ever be able to do the same thing again. So again, it's this idea of these players coming from all over the world. Aaron from New Orleans, Louisiana, and then Rocco from Zagreb, Croatia, and yet they share many similarities between them.